Yeah.
But like, what's your story?
My story, man, it's so interesting because I think I think people have such a different ideas about what it looks like to receive the gift of tongues, but there is like such a wide variety of
Yeah.
testimonies along this spectrum. Some really intense where it's just like bursting out of your mouth and
Yes.
you can't even like do anything about it. And then there's some where it's like such a almost like a leap of faith to partner with him the whole time you're thinking, am I making this up?
Yeah. And that is the lie that comes so quickly with the gift of tongues at times.
Oh my gosh, that was such a big part of my testimony. So similar to you, I was in 5th grade and I was at a prayer meeting that my parents were at. I mean, I wasn't really a part of it. Us kids were kind of playing downstairs.
Yeah.
But about an hour into the prayer meeting or whatever, I kind of came upstairs and I see my parents along with a few of their friends all standing in a circle, laying hands on somebody in the middle, sitting in a chair, praying for them. And my family was always like kind of like undercover charismatics.
Ooh, secret agents.
Within like Baptist churches and stuff.
Oh yeah, okay.
Really interesting, but and so I kind of like knew of different concepts. However, I was just in 5th grade. And so I come up and catch my parents in this prayer meeting.
You catch them.
I catch them praying. Isn't that's
awesome.
what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I come up, I see they're praying, and I'm like, oh, like let me get in on this. And I come and I put my hand on the person we were praying for in the middle. All of a sudden, just almost instantly, this like surge of electricity goes down my arm and like into my body, and I like fall down on the ground.
Wow.
And start just laughing hysterically and just praying or speaking in tongues in a different language.
So cool.
And man, it was like kind of a dramatic instant experience that happened, okay? And I remember that night knowing kind of what took place. I knew that it was tongues. That's all I knew, but I didn't really know what was happening exactly. I just knew what it was called.
Yeah.
And then I remember that night like going to bed and just singing worship songs that night in my bed. I felt so in love with the Lord.
Aww.
And so over the course, but here's the real kicker. Over the course of the next couple weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks after that, the voice of the accuser just like started just like speaking to me like, you're making this up. Like, this is just fake. You're just like moving your mouth. You're just like, you just want to be cool. Like, some of these adults who you've heard pray in tongues, like this isn't real.
Yeah.
And I never got some real shepherding, the real like kind of pastoring that I needed. And I didn't understand what had happened to me. I don't remember talking about it that much. I kind of wish that my mom or my dad would have kind of helped me understand what was going on.
Yeah.
But about 4 weeks after that experience that I just described, I kind of freaked out about the whole thing. And I just remember asking the Lord, just take it away. I don't want it.
Aww.
I don't know anyone else my age who has it. And I don't even know if it's real. So just take it away.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, Deni, it just like, that was it for the gift of tongues for over a decade.
Over a decade?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't until I was 19, 20 years old where I stumbled across a book that Sam Storms wrote. I don't know if you know who Sam Storms is.
No, I don't.
Good friend of Mike Bickle's.
Okay.
Pastor in Oklahoma, writes a lot of books, just a theologian.
Yeah.
Actually helped start IHOP back in the day. He wrote a book, and he was one of my dad's professors back in the day too. It was called the Grace Training Center.
Okay. I've heard of that. Okay.
And it was kind of IHOP U before IHOP U. In the 90s. And so awesome guy, awesome pastor. has a couple of theological differences with Mike, and so,
Okay.
but they're great friends. They forward each other's books.
Totally. That's awesome.
But anyways, I came across this book called, it was called Convergence, and then the subtitle was The Spiritual Journey of a Charismatic Calvinist.
Wow.
And at the time, I was kind of at a reformed type of discipleship program, but I was remembering this experience that I had when I was in 5th grade, and I started asking the Lord about it. I'm just like, Lord, what was that?
Yeah.
Was that real? Because I start reading Sam's book, and he describes an experience he had so similar to mine, only it happened to him about at 20 years old.
Oh, wow.
And something happened to where he got really discouraged, and the gift of tongues went away for 2 decades.
Oh, my word.
Yes. And so I'm reading this and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is what happened to me.
Wow.
Not really having the language for it. So I begin, I'm 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. I begin asking the Lord again, Lord, like, would you give me the gift of tongues? Maybe for the first time, maybe again.
Yeah.
I didn't really know if I'd had it before. But then eventually I kind of switched my language to, would you reawaken it? Because I started to believe I really did have it.
Yeah.
So fast forward, a couple of years of praying this,
Wow.
nothing, right?
Wow.
I come here to IHOP in Kansas City, 2017.
Uh-huh.
And I get here and it feels like I'm the only one who doesn't have the gift of
I know.
tongues.
The tables have turned.
The tables have turned. All of a sudden I was in a context where I would have been the only one.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a context where it feels like I'm the only one who doesn't, even though that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And I realized that. But it was scary because I wanted that gift, and I had to push past this. I had to kind of lay down my pride and a little bit of, what I felt like was my dignity, because I would ask my friends to pray for me for this.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, the whole first 6 months I was here, I had groups of friends pray for me multiple times that I would receive the gift of tongues, and I would be like, I'm trying. And I just didn't know, I didn't know what was supposed to happen. I didn't want to force it. I didn't want to make something up. But 2 different times, I had different friends of mine pray for me for about 60 seconds, and then they would just go, Nathan, I feel like the Lord's telling me that you have it. And I'm like, what? Oh my God.
Where is this gift that I have?
I know. I'm like, I have it. And that's kind of what led me to believe that I did have it from the time I was in 5th grade. It needed to be reawakened.
Yeah.
It needed to be rekindled. It needed to be fanned into flame, as Paul tells Timothy, fan into flame the gifts that you've been given by the laying on of hands. And so I started getting this concept for, wow, you can have stuff and it can be quenched, or you can build strongholds in your mind. And that was a big one for me. And I remember Stephen Beauchamp praying for me one time. Prayed for me for 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And he goes, you got something up here in your head that's keeping you from experiencing something down here in your heart.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it is. And so I actually went to a breakout session at the One Thing conference.
Okay.
Where they walked us through the gift of tongues. And at the end, there's 300 people in this room at this at this little outbreak little thing at this conference. And we all pray for the gift of tongues at the end. And I felt like I got a little baby phrase. I felt like something just shifted and broke. But it was like I felt like a baby.
Yeah.
Where I got this little phrase, and I just felt like I was supposed to be faithful with it.
Yeah.
And that it would grow just as your vocabulary grows in whatever language you learn as a baby.
Yeah.
And that's what it's done. And the Lord has breathed on it.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle in which it was really weak at first, and you do it, and it gets stronger. And now, I have a large vocabulary of tongue talking, speaking, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And now it's something that I do every day. Now I can't remember what it was like to not have the gift of tongues. I don't know if
Yeah.
if that's your experience,
Yeah.
but like, man, I find myself praying in tongues in lulls in conversations or lulls in whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
And here was my experience too. Whenever the gift of tongues was reawakened, all the rest of the gifts just went to the next level.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if what was your experience with that? Have you kind of seen that, a similarity?
I don't know. I feel like I was so young that I don't fully remember. I know, like, I did dream more, I think, after that time.
Yeah. That's another thing. My dream life exploded when I got
But it's
the
funny
gift of
because it's
tongues.
kind of tapered off, and I'm like in the process of being like, Jesus, give me some more dreams.
That's okay. That's where me too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know if I would correlate the two, but that does make sense. It's like where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom, and when we're free, like I don't know, you can give all sorts of gifts to those people that are
Wow.
free. So
Yeah.